The life of Nelson Mandela. The boy who dreamed of freedom. Nelson Mandela was born on July 18, 1918, in a small village called Mvizo in South Africa. His birth name was Ralilala Mandela, which in his local language meant pulling the branch of a tree, or as some say, troublemaker. But no one knew that this boy, born in a quiet corner of the world, would one day change history. He came from the Thembu royal family and was raised in the traditions of his people, learning about leadership, respect, and community from an early age. Mandela's father died when he was just 9 years old. After that, he was sent to live with a powerful chief named John Jintaba. This new home was very different. Mandela was now in a more educated and political environment. He was treated with respect and given the chance to attend good schools. It was here that Mandela began to learn more about the world beyond his village. He became curious, thoughtful, and aware of the injustice faced by black South Africans. At school, one of Mandela's teachers gave him the name Nelson. At that time, it was common for African children to be given English names by teachers. Nelson continued his studies and eventually attended the University of Fort Hare, the only university for black people in South Africa at the time. But even there, racism followed. Black students were given fewer rights and had no real voice. Mandela protested against unfair rules at the university and was expelled for standing up to the system. His guardian, John Jintaba, was disappointed and arranged a marriage for him. But Mandela wasn't ready to settle down. He ran away to Johannesburg, the biggest city in South Africa, with no money and no clear plan. Life in Johannesburg was tough. He worked small jobs including as a mine security guard, and later found work as a clerk in a law firm. During this time he studied law at night, reading by candlelight, and dreaming of a better future for his people. In the city, Mandela saw how badly black people were treated under a system called apartheid. Under apartheid, white South Africans had all the power. They lived in the best neighborhoods, went to the best schools, and had the best jobs. Black South Africans, who made up most of the population, had almost no rights. They couldn't vote, they couldn't travel freely, and they were forced to live in poor areas. Even buses, schools, and parks were separated by race. Mandela knew something had to change. In 1944, he joined the African National Congress, ANC, a political group that was fighting against apartheid. He and his friends, including Walter Sisulu and Oliver Tambo, started the ANC Youth League. They believed in peaceful protest. They marched, gave speeches, organized boycotts, and stood up to injustice without using violence. Mandela quickly became one of the movement's brightest leaders. In the 1950s, Mandela opened the first black-owned law firm in South Africa with Oliver Tambo. They helped poor black people who had no voice in court. Mandela was also arrested many times for protesting and speaking out against the government. But he never gave up. He believed in the power of peaceful resistance and stayed committed to the cause. Then came one of the darkest days in South African history, the Sharpeville massacre in 1960. Police opened fire on a peaceful crowd protesting against past laws, rules that limited where black people could go. 69 people were killed, most of them shot in the back while running away. This event shocked the world and changed Mandela's path. After the massacre, the government banned the ANC and made it illegal for people to protest. Peaceful resistance no longer seemed to be enough. Mandela and other leaders made a difficult decision. They would now fight back in a different way. They formed a secret group called Umkhonto we Sizwe, Spear of the Nation, which would carry out sabotage acts like blowing up empty buildings and power lines. They didn't want to harm people but wanted to send a message to the government that they would not be silenced. Mandela went into hiding and began traveling to other countries to gain support for the cause. He trained with freedom fighters and gave secret speeches. The police called him the Black Pimpernel because he always escaped them. But in 1962, Mandela was finally caught and arrested. He was sentenced to 5 years in prison for leaving the country without permission. While he was in prison, the police discovered secret documents linking him to the sabotage group. They put him on trial again, this time for trying to overthrow the government. This trial became famous around the world. It was called the Rivonia trial. At the trial, Mandela gave a powerful speech. He said, "I have fought against white domination and I have fought against black domination. I have cherished the ideal of a democratic and free society. It is an ideal for which I am prepared to die." The court sentenced him to life in prison. Mandela was taken to Robben Island, a small, harsh prison off the coast of Cape Town. His cell was tiny, with only a blanket on the floor and a small bucket for a toilet. He spent his days breaking rocks under the hot sun. He was allowed to write and receive only 2 letters a year. He could only see a visitor once every 6 months. But even in this dark place, Mandela did not lose hope. He continued to learn, to read, and to teach. He became a leader even behind bars. The guards respected him. Other prisoners looked up to him. He forgave those who were cruel to him. And slowly, the world began to take notice. As the years passed, the call for Mandela's freedom grew louder. People across South Africa and around the world began to chant, "Free Nelson Mandela." His name became a symbol of justice, freedom, and hope. And after 27 years in prison, something amazing happened. On February 11, 1990, the gates of Victor Verster prison slowly opened. After 27 years behind bars, Nelson Mandela walked out into the sunlight, holding his wife Winnie's hand. He looked calm and proud. His hair had turned gray, and his body was older, but his spirit was unbroken. Thousands of people cheered for him. All across South Africa and the world, people watched him walk free on television. That moment was history. A symbol of hope for millions. The world expected Mandela to be angry. After all, he had lost so many years in prison. He had been separated from his family, missed the funerals of his mother and son, and lived in a small prison cell for nearly 3 decades. But Mandela surprised everyone. He did not call for revenge. Instead, he spoke of peace and unity. He said that the past should be remembered, but not repeated. He wanted black and white South Africans to live together, not as enemies but as equals. After his release, Mandela quickly returned to political work. He became the leader of the African National Congress, ANC, once again. At the same time, the President of South Africa, F.W. de Klerk, also wanted to change the country. Apartheid, the system that gave white people power over black people, was no longer working. Protests were everywhere, and the world had placed heavy pressure on the South African government. Mandela and de Klerk began to meet and talk. They were very different men, but they shared one goal: to build a peaceful future. In 1993, Nelson Mandela and F.W. de Klerk were awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for their work to end apartheid. It was a special moment. 2 former enemies were honored for choosing peace over war. But the biggest change was still to come. The people of South Africa were finally going to vote in a free and fair election. And for the first time, black people could vote too. In April 1994, the long lines stretched for miles. Old men and women stood patiently, some walking with sticks, some with tears in their eyes. Many had waited their whole lives for this moment. Over 19 million people voted. And when the results were announced, the world celebrated once again. Nelson Mandela had won. He became the first black president of South Africa. Mandela's inauguration on May 10, 1994, was a day of joy. People sang, danced, and waved flags. Leaders from all over the world came to see history being made. But Mandela knew that becoming president was only the beginning. The country was still full of pain. There were deep wounds that could not be healed by just one election. Mandela wanted to fix more than laws. He wanted to heal hearts. One of his most powerful acts came in 1995 during the Rugby World Cup. At that time, rugby was a sport mostly loved by white South Africans. Many black South Africans saw it as a symbol of apartheid. But Mandela had a plan. He wore the green jersey of the national rugby team and cheered them on. When South Africa won the championship, Mandela walked onto the field and handed the trophy to the team captain. The crowd, mostly white, stood and cheered for him. It was a moment that brought the nation closer. It showed that Mandela was truly the president of all South Africans. Mandela also helped start the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, led by Archbishop Desmond Tutu. The commission allowed people to tell their stories, both victims and those who had committed crimes during apartheid. Some came forward and admitted terrible acts. Others forgave the people who had hurt them. It was painful, but Mandela believed it was necessary. He knew that real peace comes from truth, even if the truth is hard. After 5 years as president, Mandela made another surprising decision. He stepped down. He did not try to hold on to power like many other leaders. He believed that democracy only works when leaders pass the torch. In 1999, he left office with pride and respect from people across the world. But he did not stop working. He continued to speak out for peace, education, and the rights of the poor. He started the Nelson Mandela Foundation, which worked to improve schools, hospitals, and communities. Even in his later years, Mandela remained active. He met world leaders, gave speeches, and inspired young people to become changemakers. He once said, "Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world." He believed in the power of knowledge and kindness more than violence or control. Nelson Mandela passed away on December 5, 2013, at the age of 95. The world mourned deeply. There were memorial services across every continent. Presidents, kings, and people from all walks of life came to say goodbye. South Africa held 10 days of mourning, during which millions paid tribute to the man they called Madiba. His clan name, a name filled with love and honor. Mandela's life taught the world many lessons. He showed that one person can stand up to injustice and change history. He showed that even after 27 years in prison, you can choose forgiveness over revenge. He showed that a true leader serves others, not himself. He once said, "I am not a saint unless you think of a saint as a sinner who keeps on trying." Today, Nelson Mandela's face is on money, statues, school walls, and murals. His words are in books, songs, and hearts. Every year on July 18th, people celebrate Mandela Day by doing 67 minutes of service. 1 minute for each year Mandela fought for freedom. People clean streets, help the poor, feed the hungry, and spread kindness, just as Mandela would have wanted. The story of Nelson Mandela is not just the story of one man. It is the story of hope, courage, forgiveness, and the belief that no matter how long the road, freedom is always worth walking toward.